You know it, you love it, you never use it, it's over the limit. So how are we going to fix over the limit? This is a skill that in my opinion should be good. Also time ward should probably be addressed too. I might make a video on that because no one uses it and for good reason. It's not really that useful. But over the limit is a terrible skill. There's a few reasons why. One of them is you get continuous overcast while using it. Another one is that you have -1 energy regen. Another one is that it's an enchantment. Another one is that it's like its effect isn't really that useful. Casting 20% faster on Ellie really isn't the biggest deal. If it was 50% faster, maybe, but there's things that increase Ellie's casting speed, like stolen speed, for example. That's like a pretty good skill to use because not only does it shut down enemy casters on adjacents by doubling their casting speed, but it reduces any Ellie or any caster's speed, like casting on that enemy, by 50%, which is halving it. So also this effect isn't really that good because we have Ebon Battle Standard of Wisdom, which does basically the same thing at 60% of the time, and you combine that with a 40-40 and you basically have like have casting recharge, or I'm sorry, have skill recharge, have spell recharge. So the reason why this isn't good is it doesn't solve any of Ellie's problems. Ellie's main problem is dealing either armor ignoring damage or casting spells faster because some of its spells take a long time to cast. It also has some spells that cost a lot of energy to cast and generally force it to use attunements. And if those attunements are stripped, it has a hard time casting its spells. There are some builds that are cheaper, like Starburst, for example, Invoke Lightning. These builds tend to not be energy hogs, but most fire magic builds that use like Rod Gorts and things like this, or even Searing Flames, tend to be quite high in energy demand. So this skill, like you have to consider you're dropping Starburst, you're dropping Searing Flames, you're dropping Invoke Lightning, you're dropping Thunderclap, you're dropping Savannah Heat for this. So that's like a single Savannah Heat does 300 damage against 60 armor nearby, which is pretty crazy. But this doesn't really solve any of Ellie's problems. Ellie needs either utility, shutdown, damage, right? Or some kind of like significant energy management, like you have those Bonder Ellie builds. Ellie can be like a healer or a prot with, Ether Renewal? So there's like some good builds Ellie has, but this doesn't solve any of those problems. And the upside of casting 20% faster is not that good. Recharge 50% faster. The thing that sucks though is that when Mesmer was updated in 2012, it basically just got this effect on fast casting, which is ridiculous. And that's probably, actually, honestly, it is the reason why Mesmer is like one of the metagame classes for PvE, because its skills just recharge faster on top of already having pretty low cooldowns and dealing adjacent and nearby armor ignoring damage, and in some cases area. So how do we fix this skill? All right, so I've actually shipped a few indie games, and I know what it entails to update things, to update skills. I actually had skills in some of the indie games I shipped, and I actually made little updates. It is not that hard to change the functionality of a thing, especially if it's player only and AI does not need to use it. So this could easily be fixed by a single dev, and the proposed changes that I'm going to bring up in a second wouldn't really be that hard to implement because all the functionality that I'm going to outline already exists in other skills, so it would not be that crazy. But here's how I would fix the skill. All right, so same stats, 5 energy, 20 cooldown. It's now a skill, so it just stays on you. It can't be torn down, because if you do a lot of PvE, you know that enchant hate is a serious problem. Every enemy necro has Chillblains for some god-awful reason, and it only really seems to counter Ellie's, which is, and maybe prot monks to some degree, but everyone runs soul twisting anyways. But here's the big idea. You have, so this is at 12 and 15 energy storage. Your next 6 to 8 spells cast instantly and deal a little bit more armor ignoring damage. That's it. And it lasts for 20 seconds. So secondary professions couldn't use it at all because it'd be at 0 unless you have energy storage. So you can't have energy storage unless you're an Ellie. This would make Ellie have a lot of viable builds out of nowhere because one, it solves 2 problems of Ellie's: the casting time and the armor respecting damage. It gives you extra armor ignoring damage, and if you also use something like Ebon Battle Standard of Honor, to give yourself even more armor ignoring damage. Now Ellie is competing with Mesmer, but only player Ellie. PvE, hero Ellie still can't run this, still will be where it's at, you know, as like a stand-in for some damage or shutdown for like a Mesmer. But player Ellie now has some options for casting spells. So you could cast like Fireball and like, you know, a bunch of other things really rapidly. So for example, you could do like Fireball, Rodgort's Invocation, Searing Heat or something. Searing Heat's like it's like over time, so you can maybe open with that, but you could like stack AoEs and just like spam out spells. There would definitely need to be some playtesting. Obviously, maybe it would need to be reduced to like 5, 7, or 4, 6 or something like that. But honestly, I don't think it would really be that bad. The combined with intensity, this plus intensity, this would probably push Ellie into being like potentially viable for some speed clears, maybe. Depends on the area, but you have to consider this would work with any spell. So you could use Ice Magic, or Ice Magic. It's basically Ice Magic. It does ice damage, it freezes, but it's called Water Magic. But anyways, you could do Water Magic, Earth Magic builds with this. The only downside still is cooldowns. So Ellie still has that cooldowns problem, so this wouldn't break the game. But it would just give Ellie some fun skill to use that would be viable. Because in its current form, it's just not very fun. So basically you have 6 to 8 spells that cast instantly and then deal a little bit more damage. So the way the damage would work, so if you put an AoE down, like Searing Heat, which hits nearby 5 times, it would add it to each one of those procs. So it would just boost the damage of that spell. Now, if this is too hard to implement from a coding standpoint for the developers, they could always just drop this and maybe give you like some extra energy. Like maybe you get like 2 or 3 energy, or maybe your spells are cheaper, something like that. Or maybe the cooldown is reduced by like 30% or something. Like you could drop the damage for cooldown. You could drop the damage for returning some energy when you cast these spells, or reducing the cost of these spells. So maybe like your spells cost like 1.3 less energy, like starting here. Like 1, 3, 4 or something like that. So it reduces the energy cost, or it reduces the cooldown. Either one of those could be used in place of damage if the damage is too hard to implement. But in its current form, I don't think anyone runs this skill at all. And I'm going to go over Time Ward in a future video, but I think this would be an easy way to fix it. It needs to be a skill because enchantment hate is very common in most of PvE, and boosting the damage is nice. Another alternative could be that it drops a ward that makes your spells cast instantly and then all allies deal damage. That would be, because like Ranger has that crazy thing that makes all allies near your pet and the Ranger deal increased damage. So like they're obviously throwing like strict balance out the window here. And this, even looking at this still wouldn't be overpowered. I can just tell. Like casting spells instantly, they're still aftercast. They're still armor respecting. So like most areas where Ellie tends to be kind of weak, you'd still have armor respecting damage mitigating the effect of this. Plus the Ellie's high cooldowns, like you have to factor that in, right? Ellie doesn't have like a lot of Ellie's good skills either cost a lot of energy or have very high cooldowns. So you wouldn't be able to spam as many spells as you think, but it would just speed the Ellie up to make it a little bit more competitive as a player. Now, obviously, there are some good builds. Assassin's Promise is decent. There's some Starburst builds, but it depends on the region. Certain regions, it's just not good in. Like, if you're fighting Destroyers, Starburst is, like, almost useless. You don't get the burn, and it doesn't deal much damage. But there are still some viable Ellie builds, but this would just take a useless skill and just make it good. So if the devs see this, I appreciate the work you guys are doing. I think I can speak for the community here when I say we greatly appreciate any updates to the game at all. And that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And also let me know what you would change about this skill, or if you like this idea, or if you think it'd be overpowered. Personally, I play a lot of Ellie. I also play a lot of Mesmer. I don't think it would be overpowered. The cooldowns and the energy costs, those are like substantially limiting factors, right? Like those would drastically reduce the effectiveness, but it would still allow you to just like get out spells really quickly. So you could throw down like Searing Heat, Rodgort's, fireball, and then like a flare, and the only thing in your way is aftercast. So that would be pretty fat damage. Like that'd be pretty huge damage. You could also include like liquid flame or something, or meteor if you wanted. But of those skills, searing heat, 30-second cooldown, rod gort's 25 energy, 8-second cooldown, fireball, 10 energy, I think it's 8-second cooldown. Sorry, no, 7-second, and then like meteor is like 30. So it wouldn't really be overpowered. It would just basically allow Ellie to burst. It'd be what the skill is kind of promising, over the limit. You know, you're bursting through all your energy to kill stuff really quickly. That's exactly the idea, right? So, all right, so that's it for this one. I think this would be an interesting change. Let me know what you think, and peace.